Before we get into Bachelor Party, let me tell you about what else is going on at The Ringer. On Tuesday night, Andre the Giant premieres on HBO. It's a documentary executive produced by Bill Simmons. I highly recommend you check it out. We were so excited about it that we did a whole week of giant content about giants, real and fictional, on all platforms of The Ringer. So check that out. Go to theringer.com/giant-week and you will find all of that. That's theringer.com/giant-week. Additionally, while you're there, if you're listening to this podcast, I assume you like reality television. Therefore, check out Miles Surrey on Jersey Shore Family Vacation. Episode 1 aired last week. The Seaside Heights guys are back. I'm happy to have them, and Miles has a lot of pressing questions. So check that out. And again, check out my interview with Sally Ann Salzano. She talked a fair amount about this new iteration of Jersey Shore. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to Bachelor Party. I'm Juliet Litman. No Bachelor today, but instead a much better topic because I'm super excited to have Adam DiVello here, co-creator of Laguna Beach, creator of The Hills, and creator of Music City, currently on CMT. Hi, Adam.
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I am obsessed with your shows. I love Lauren unabashedly. We'll be asking you a lot about her, but let's talk about Music City first. So Music City is on CMT, and it is about a group of people living in Nashville who are trying to make it in the music industry and also looking for love.
Yes.
Do you think that's an apt way of describing it?
I think so. I mean, they're all looking to chase a dream, and I think that they're chasing their musical dreams and they're trying to figure out their personal lives at the same time. And I think that involves looking for love. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's some great characters.
Thank you.
I think my favorite is probably Jackson, who is like an aspiring singer, songwriter.
Yep.
Though he really has no background in music whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's just a model turned wannabe some music celebrity, right?
He is a trainer. He was a personal trainer. Where he works at one of those personal fitness places, and he's a trainer there, and that's how we met him. And that's we had no idea when we started the show that he had any musical aspirations whatsoever.
Really?
And we shot that first scene with him and J-Mac, where Rachel set them up on a date, and so we shoot the date, and again, we don't really know what's going to happen when these people meet and how it's going to go down. And they met for the very first time, and on that date, he said to her, She asked him, "Do you ever sing?" And he's like, "Only in the car and in the shower." And she goes, "Well, I want to hear you sing." And when he sung, we all of our mouths dropped. We're over in Video Village watching this on monitors, and we're like, "Holy shit! He can really sing." And so we were so excited. And then J-Mac was like, "You have to pursue this. This is something you have to do." And it was you kind of they say the reality gods are with you. We were really just. The reality gods are with us, I think, along that whole way. Do people say that? They do. They're like, the reality gods are with you because you don't know what you're going to get when you go out. You can cast the perfect cast and you can, plot the perfect course, but you really ultimately don't know what you're going to get, and you kind of want that lightning in a bottle. And I think that comes along once in a while, and I think that a moment like that in reality world is lightning in a bottle.
It really is hard to capture. And I think this cast is pretty fun. Like I said, Jackson is my favorite, but they have a lot of personality. What's the average age of this cast? They're a little bit older, right?
Yeah, they're a little older, and I think that was kind of intentional. We wanted to show people that where the stakes are a little higher when you have children or when you're thinking about getting married, and you have someone like J-Mac who just turned 30 who was holding out for marriage to have sex. So you have, the stakes are a little higher as you get closer to 30, and I think they're all about late 20s.
Yeah.
Early 30s.
Yeah, it seems that way. There's a married couple. There's Carrie and Rachel with a Y.
Yep. Rachel with a Y.
They have a kid.
Little Wolfgang.
He's cute.
Wolfgang Jackson.
Is that his
Degman?
Yeah.
His middle name's Jackson, named after Carrie's dog that he used to have.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I have no comment on that. So this show visually looks a lot like The Hills and Laguna. It has a certain signature style that I think people who like those shows will recognize. Why Nashville? What was the kind of the conception behind this? And how did you what's it like to be let's do this in a specific city, and why? How do you sell that to a network?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I took a lot of time after The Hills and kind of snooped around and thought about what I wanted to do next and what worlds I wanted to explore. And, I had done a couple of pilots in different areas and for whatever reason, some of them just didn't work out. And I think that when Nashville, the scripted series came on ABC, I was drawn to it immediately. I thought it was a great concept. And I loved kind of upstairs, downstairs of it with Juliet Barnes. Then you've got the younger cast who's struggling, cut against the woman who's kind of ruling the town. And so I thought it was such a great idea, and I thought it was just ripe to be turned into like a reality series.
Sure.
I'm like, this has to happen. Like, there has to be a place, and there's a real Bluebird Cafe, and there's a real, everything is really down there. And they shot the show in Nashville, which I thought was great. After the show had moved from ABC to CMT, I had known Morgan Seltzer, who's our
mutual friend.
Our mutual friend and an executive on the show, and also an EP on the show.
I was excited to see her name in the credits.
I was too. I love Morgan. She's the best. And she, oddly enough, was my assistant back in New York when I was out doing Laguna Beach. So we worked together in New York years and years and years ago, but I was in Laguna. She was in New York. We never actually worked one-on-one, but we worked together, so it was kind of a nice circle. It all came back around because when she was at CMT, we had lunch one day and I had mentioned to her, I was like, I'd love to do a reality version of Nashville. And she had said it'd been done a million times, or they had tried to do it a few times and it didn't work out. And she said, but if I go back to them and I tell them that you're interested and you're going to give it your look that you give it,
sure.
They said maybe it'll fly. And they picked it up pretty quickly. I mean, we cast it and they picked it up.
Was the look a big part of it? Like, was that part of the pitch?
I think so. I mean, we knew that we wanted to make it look a little different. And I think, we always approach each one of these series, and I don't think the typical viewers just noticing this kind of stuff. But we use kind of like different color palettes and different lenses for each one of these shows, because like LA should be like glossy and very like
kind of like that orange tint to it, the sort of sun drenched.
Even Laguna was way more sun drenched than even the Hills was. But, the Laguna Beach, we really wanted it to be saturated and very like sunsetty, and then the Hills was supposed to be very like jewel tones and everything should be sparkly, and it's like Hollywood, and like everything should be like bright blues and bright pinks, and and when we did the city, we went very much cooler, which are much more cooler,
way more grays and sort of like darker blues in that one. I can just think of Jay's knit hat when I think about the city.
And Whitney walking down the streets, and it was nice because she was like this blonde, like almost like 5'9" blonde walking through these city streets, so she kind of stuck out. But we wanted it to look like very, very oppressive and very like, scary kind of in a sense, because it's the big city, it's New York City, so you want it to feel aspirational, but at the same time not so La La Land. And then when we approached Nashville, it was the same kind of an idea, and I kind of wanted it to have that gauzy kind of look to it, because you are in the South. We shot the pilot in August, so it was like 100,000 degrees in August, and so we wanted the audience to feel that, and so we kind of went with like a more like gauzy kind of, I always kept saying like an Erin Brockovich kind of look to it, and that's kind of the color palette I wanted it for that one.
Yeah, totally. And also it has more. It's funny, like. It looks like a newer city. Like there's like the sort of open spaces with the steel beams and wood rafters, which is in stark contrast to kind of like the LA of 2006 that Heidi and Lauren were running around, which is funny.
It's funny, that town is in influx. Like they call it Crane City because there's so many cranes. I mean, there's new buildings going up every day, and there's new hotels, and there's like 100 and some odd people moving there a day.
That's crazy.
To that city. So, and it's just booming. I mean, they have everything that we kind of have in LA. They've got like a Barry's Boot Camp, and they've got,
they've got everything.
Every yogurt place they have. And it's like, it's interesting because we were all kind of taken back by that. And I don't think anyone's seen that side of Nashville yet. And I think that was part of the, we wanted to kind of stay away from the redneck Riviera, idea of the South, and really kind of give it a more cosmopolitan feel.
It definitely seems that way. It seems much more like yuppie, for lack of a better term, than I think people expect. It also kind of reminded me of Austin. Like, I think that is a real type of city, and like they're both coincidentally big destinations for bachelor and bachelorette parties.
Exactly, yes.
But it is because they do have like all of those things that like you're like, yeah, we can all go to like a group fitness class together, and then we can hit like the cool outdoor bar or whatever.
They have the street of bars, and they got the bicycles where like 10 girls are all riding one bike, and one's wearing a bridesmaid's or one's wearing a gown. And also, it's a really big foodie town. Like, I was really surprised. I mean, the food is amazing. When we're there, I mean, we try to shoot at all like the cool spots and the places that have like the best kind of food. And, season one's really hard to get into everywhere you want to get into, because some people are like, get out of town. But the ones that really welcomed us, for the majority of the town, really welcomed us in. And I think it was because CMT was put their stamp on it, and they have such a big presence in Nashville.
Right, that makes sense.
And they kind of knew the past shows that we made. So we wanted to make an aspirational show. We wanted to make it look beautiful, but you always need drama too. So
sure. I like that you call it aspirational. I think that's like absolutely it. Like I watched your shows before I even been to California.
Yeah.
So like all I knew of LA was like Ketchup and Lay Do and like
right.
and like wherever they were going. And I was like, and then for the first like 3 years I lived here, everywhere I went, I was like, oh, that was on the Hill. They're like, oh, of course. And like the Dime, which is a bar here in LA, is still the Dime where Stacey the bartender. Yeah. Exactly.
I used to hang out at the Dime all the time when I first moved out here. You know, it's funny, the whole concept, I mean, the whole trajectory of this whole career that I've taken out here in California kind of was fun because I was seeing it all for the first time as well. You know, when I came out from New York, you know, I was a development executive at MTV in Manhattan in 1515 Times Square for probably like 10, 11 years I was there. So I was there forever. For 6 years I was a development exec, and I developed like shows like Room Raiders was like a show I
The Blacklight, was that you?
Yes. They came in with that pitch about looking at other kids' rooms, and I come out with that Blacklight idea from some Michael Douglas movie he was in.
Really?
They did it in the movie, and I said, what if we get one of those freaky lights that shows stuff on the beds? So yes,
that's iconic.
I'm really proud of that show, but it ran forever, and it ran for many, many years after I had left, and I was super proud of that. We did Say What Karaoke, which was one that I developed, and we developed TRL when I was there.
I took the day off from school in 1999 by myself when Millennium came out. I went to HMV on 72nd and Broadway. I bought one copy of Millennium. Then I went to Times Square and stood outside.
Yes.
And just waited for them to come wave at the window.
That's amazing.
And then I went home, stopped at HMV a second time, bought some posters. And then
my God.
That was it.
So you were the fan.
I was literally by myself. I was 13. My parents were like, yeah, sure. Everyone else was in school. And I was like just hanging out.
You were one of those sea of people in Times Square at that time.
And like it was one of the best days of my young life. It was just wonderful. So awesome. Thank you for TRL.
No, we had so much fun doing that show, and so much fun and so much fun. You know, we would take that show to the beach when we did the beach houses, and we take it to spring break. And so like we got to like, it was just fun. And we did, you know, so anyway, that's kind of how it started out. So when I came out to do Laguna Beach, I mean, the original idea was to do a Beverly Hills 90210 was a reality version of Beverly Hills 90210. So I was the first one to raise my hand in the room, and I was like, I'll go to California. I was dying to go to California.
If someone has to go, I'll do it.
I always wanted to move to California, so for me it was the perfect excuse. And when I came out, I just met with a million high schools, and nothing was kind of what we thought it was going to be. And I had lived in Laguna Beach for a little while in college. I took like a semester or two off and lived down there. And so
definitely the nicest beach town in Orange County.
It's gorgeous. I actually lived in Newport Beach, right next to it, but I thought the OC had just came out. And so I was like, wait, why don't we do a reality version of the OC instead of...
Interesting. So when you brought up the Nashville scripted and then Nashville, your show, or Music City, I was like, oh, is that... Because that is what happened. The OC came out in August of 2003, and then Laguna Beach hit in September of 2004, one year later. And then I think a year after that, The Real Housewives of Orange County came out. And somewhere in that mix, Desperate Housewives also came out. And so like, those four shows kind of defined what Southern California looked like on television for, I think, people my age. I'm 32. Like, for, I think, my generation, like, that's what California looks like. In Laguna Beach, I think the OC and Laguna together, like, just sort of changed, like, what high school looked like. The way that, like, 90210 and Saved by the Bell did it for, like, the previous generation. I think Laguna and the OC did for my generation. And it's interesting to see like that. And now I think Nashville is such a touchstone because of the scripted show, and also because of Taylor Swift, to be honest. Like, she lives there, and country.
Justin Timberlake.
Like,
so many people live there now. Kelly Clarkson.
Does she live there now?
Yeah, she's there. We see Nicole Kidman on the plane all the time, flying back and forth.
I love her.
We see everybody. There's so many people from Hollywood have called that now their home, so it's nice.
Yeah, it's like in the rental market's like all out of whack because of the Airbnb situation. But anyway, the center of this show is the couple Carrie and Rachel. And it's one thing that's really different about the show is that at its core, it's not a will they or they won't they. It's like, how are they going to make it? How are they going to make it work?
They already did. Yeah,
they've done it. They moved from Venice Beach to Nashville for Carrie's career. Rachel takes care of their son. She wants to be a lawyer and go to law school. And he wants to be a music star. So Rachel and Carrie makes me uncomfortable because I am very worried that they're not going to make it work. And I was wondering, when you cast them, what did you know about their relationship?
You know, I thought it was a really interesting dynamic. I think that they are two people that are obviously very much in love. I think that they're very much in love when you first meet them, and when you meet them in person, they obviously care very much for each other, and they're enough, that they've decided to spend the rest of their lives together. So I think it really comes across when you meet them in person. And, I think the friction, there's a natural friction there because she's with him while he's chasing his dream, and she's kind of along for the ride, and she has given up her dream, so to speak, of becoming an attorney. And I think that anytime that there's that friction there, it's obviously it's fun to watch for television, but it's their real lives and it's what they're really going through. But they seem to me like such a good team, because I think like in most cases I do feel like opposites attract, and they couldn't be, I think, more opposite.
Totally.
And I just to me to my entire career, they're like family to us now. So we just love them. We love the baby. And
how much do you interact with the cast while you're filming?
Constantly. I mean, we're with them constantly. I mean, we have to be, because we have to know what's going on in their lives every minute. And, if we don't, then we can't make a TV show. So
yeah. So how do you craft? So on competition shows, like including The Bachelor, which is essentially competition, there's an obvious way to craft an episode. There's a certain beats. You come to them every episode. You know what to expect. Yeah. How do you craft a story arc when you don't know what you're going to get, and you're just sort of like along for the ride?
It's hard. We it's not difficult, but it's a formula that we kind of created in a sense with Laguna, and I think that it's something that's been working for us. I mean, you kind of plot out your course and what they have going on in their lives, like at that moment. You have birthdays, you have anniversaries, or you've got trips, that are coming up where they're going to go back home and see a parent, or the parent's coming into town, and you kind of work your schedule around those moments. And then things happen as the ball starts rolling. I always say it's like pushing a ball down a hill, and it's like it just collects moss as it keeps going, or collects material as it keeps going down the hill. And I think that's what happens. You just need to be there with your cameras and be ready to capture it in the amount of months that you're up and running. And again, like I said, the reality gods, you hope that they bless you, like they do sometimes when you get a Jackson and J-Mac and they hit it off, and they've got such incredible chemistry. And that wasn't pre-planned. Those two had never seen each other before that scene.
Really?
Never, ever. When we kept them separate and they'd never met, and they had just instant chemistry, and we're like, it's unbelievable to get that on camera. I love it, and there's things that just happen naturally while you're shooting, and you're just, it's called just riding along with their lives. Alexandra is a perfect example, Jackson's cousin. We had no idea she was going to win that pageant. I mean, how would you ever know?
She became Miss Tennessee in like episode 3, which is incredible.
Yes, it's unbelievable. We were there. We had no idea that was going to happen, and suddenly she wins out of all those girls, and we have her on our show. So we're like, this is golden,
Yeah.
So,
I thought she was going to lose. I couldn't believe that you'd get so lucky.
We were all in shock. I didn't know whether she was going to win or lose, to be honest. I don't know anything about the beauty pageants, but she's a beautiful girl and she deserves to win. And it was nice. And then the party came, and then literally Savannah comes into the party. We never met Savannah in our lives. We didn't know she was coming in.
Really?
They sign a release at the front door. If you want to come in the party, sign a release. And she came in. And then Jackson was taken by her and started talking to her. And that all just unfolded. It was pretty
So you lucked
amazing.
into a love triangle is what happened, because Jackson and Jessica were supposed to get together, but Jessica's holding out, wants to take it slow.
Yeah.
And then
along comes Savannah.
Like it seems like it couldn't have played out better for television, basically. And Savannah also is like the anti-Jessica. She's like a brunette. She's aggressive, and Jessica is like sweet and blonde and sort of like it's just they are way more opposite than like Lauren and Kristen.
Right.
Lauren and Kristen are cut from the same cloth. That's why they hate each other. And Jessica is like, she's like, or J-Mac. She's not really threatened by it, I guess. I don't know. I feel like she actually probably is like used to something similar happening. So
the thing that's really cool about J-Mac, and the thing I love the most about her, is just how I mean, for lack of better terms, just how cool she is. I mean, she's just a cool girl. She just takes it, and I think she's fully aware of what's happening, and she's fully aware of her own her own confidence, and she's very secure in herself. And I think everything else is kind of rolls off her back. And I love that about her. And I love the way that she processes things. And I think that she handled this whole thing like a champ. And and she's going to find happiness. She
had the best quote of the series so far, which is that Nashville is a 10-year town. I love that. Nothing happens overnight. It takes 10 years here.
Yeah.
It couldn't be more. That's like a great line. I hope that more people catch on to that, because I think it's a really good,
we were happy she said it.
It's a
we
good
were like,
tagline. What's like was the biggest difference in going back into this type of show in 2018 versus 2005?
I think anytime you're telling a story that's always going to be evergreen, I think people will tune in if the story's good and if the characters are compelling. And what's harder now than it was what's it been, 8 years since The Hills?
Yeah, The Hills ended, I think, in 2011, 10.
Yeah, so 7 years ago, let's say.
Yeah.
They have, there's so much more on the air, and there's so many more channels, and there's Netflix, and there's Amazon, and there's Hulu, and there's like all these other outlets. So, I mean, I just driving down Sunset Boulevard to get here. I mean, there's over 24 billboards. Everyone is a different show on a different channel, on a different platform, and they're all striving to get attention. So, back when we did The Hills, MTV was at its peak still, and there wasn't as much clutter out there. And I think now there's a lot of clutter that you have to cut through. There's a lot of great programming, but there's just so much to watch. I mean, you can't possibly watch everything. So I think that's the big difference is like you put something like this out there and you want people to watch, obviously, and you want people to love it and tune in and like get invested in it. And it's just a matter of getting those eyeballs because the young audience isn't necessarily watching TV anymore, and they're certainly not watching live the same day, and you want them to watch the 3-day recorded, and
they've changed the metrics to account for that.
Completely. I mean, on The Hills, the first night, if we aired on a Monday, we got the ratings on Tuesday. It was, we didn't care so much about the 3-day live plus streaming and all that. It was what they watched that night. So a little different. Was
it harder to cast with I was talking to Sally Ann about this as well. Like, is it harder to cast now that people are so familiar with the genre? Because the Laguna kids, obviously, they couldn't have had like a comparable show to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be on like a show that's like X meets Y or something like that.
Yeah, the Laguna kids had nothing. They literally, I had to speak to their parents because they were all under 18 years old, so they were minors, and the parents had to sign off on them doing it. And the parents, all they had to look at was the real world.
Right.
So they thought the real world. They were like, these kids are gonna be in hot tubs. And they're gonna be like drinking. They're gonna be drinking and smoking and like partying, and that's all you want on camera. And we had to like. It took a long time to get like the school board even to approve us coming on campus to like cast that show. It was like Flashdance. Like there's like a table of like 20, there's like a table of like 10 people that run the school board and like myself and a couple lawyers from MTV. They're like trying to make this plea of like, let us please come do this. And they eventually said, go make your show, which was nice. But I think that if people want to be on TV, then they're going to want to do it. It's really, if somebody doesn't want to be on one of these shows, it's going to be really kind of impossible to talk them into it. They have to have a willingness to open up their lives, and they have to be able to just not have a filter and just say what they're thinking and just be natural. And I think that's, that's the key.
That's kind of why I'm so taken with Rachel and Carrie's. I'm just like, wow, you guys are like really showing your struggle on TV. And I find it compelling, but also uncomfortable. I mean, I also I watch The Bachelor, so like I'm well versed in like watching uncomfortable breakups or whatever.
Yeah.
And they just they're first of all much more real. Obviously, they've been together before the show and they have a child together and all that. But it's like just so wild to see them show their fights, and like they are like the nuanced fights that a couple have, and it's like, I'm not mad at you because of what you did, I'm mad at you because like of how you handled it or whatever.
Right.
And that's kind of like what they do, and I find it shocking. I'm so actively worried about them, and like I look at their social media to like see if they're still together, like making sure they're liking each other's pictures. Like it's so it's uncomfortable. Were you aware that would be a departure when it was filming?
I think that when we did the pilot, there was obviously a little tension in the pilot. And I think a lot of people were questioning like, oh my gosh, like how stable are they? Are they going to be okay? Like, and we certainly don't want to do anything to attribute to somebody not being together, not being happy. So, but we wanted to tell their story, and they were willing to let us tell their story. And I think that what has happened, and whether it has helped them or not, but a lot of people that watch the show and reach out to me, especially married couples, they are all like so taken back by like they've went through the exact same thing that they're going through. And when Carrie says something, they're just like, I can't believe he said that. Like if my husband said something like that, I'd be so happy. The thing about Carrie and Rachel, and the thing that kind of got us, that I love this about both of them, is that we interviewed them both together, and then we interviewed them both separately, just to kind of get to know each other, obviously. And then she had mentioned us that, like, Carrie is very quiet, and he doesn't say a lot, and, sometimes he'll mess up, or sometimes he'll do the wrong thing. But, like, once in a while, Carrie just says just the right thing, and it just hits the right time, and he just knows exactly when to say it. And we kind of all have realized that that's kind of the case. And there's a couple times in the series where he says a couple things to her, like, for instance, when she's in the truck with him, and she says that her an ex-boyfriend had texted her and, wanted to hook up. And she was like, didn't tell Carrie. And then she ends up telling him. And that, I got to be honest with you, when we were shooting that scene, we had no idea what was going to happen. I mean, Carrie had no idea what she was going to say. He had no idea what that scene was about, obviously. And we're all expecting he could have gotten out of that truck and said, that's it. Like, game over. I'm done. And he turns around and he's like, you know what? I'm not mad. Like, I can't blame the guy. Like, I chased you until you married me, you know? And I think that was a moment where we're all like, damn, that's what she was talking about.
Totally.
Like, he said the right thing. And I think we're all just, we all just kind of fell in love with their story because we're like, this is so relatable.
It really is. I also really like her a lot. I just think she's awesome. I mean, he seems cool too, but I'm really on Team Rachel.
She's great. She's a great heroine. She's great. Like and I love the fact that she's out of our cast. She's kind of the only one who's not a musician, other than like Alexandra, but she's still chasing like a dream of being Miss USA. So she's going for that.
She's in entertainment.
Yeah. So they all are, except for Rachel, she's a nanny and she wants to be an attorney. Like she's not really trying to be a celebrity, so to speak. But I think that's I think it's interesting. And I love their dynamic. And I love the will they or won't they angle about them because I think that's every couple. I think we all know couples that you're like, what's going to happen? Yeah.
I have actually found that most of the shows that I really love now have moved beyond the will they or won't they. And it's now so much more about like, how do they do it? Like, how do they make it work? You also just touched on the idea of a great heroine, which is something I want to get into and talk in depth about Lauren Conrad. But first, let's talk about today's sponsors. There is nothing sexier than confidence, and that is how you feel when you wear underwear and lingerie and swimwear that is made just for you. So let me tell you about AdoreMe.com. It's affordable, high-quality lingerie, bras, and swimwear delivered right to your door. Adore Me is designed by women for women of every body type, from petite to plus. So you get hundreds of styles to flatter your shape and support you. Just visit AdoreMe.com and choose from perfectly fitted t-shirt, bras, push-ups, bralettes, everything you could want. Plus, there's swimwear, from full support one pieces to strappy bikinis and more. There's a reason Adore Me has sold over 1 million bras. They're the perfect blend of comfort and fashion at a price you can afford. For a limited time, it's the Adore Me Spring Sale. Sets start at just $24.95 at adoreme.com/bachelor. That's up to 50% off the regular price. Plus, there's no risk or return lines. Shipping and exchanges are always free. Every bra comes with free matching underwear. That's adoreme.com/bachelor. Again, that's adoreme.com/bachelor. I also want to talk about Hotel Tonight. If you're the type that's always looking for a bigger, better deal, you've got to get the Hotel Tonight app. Hotel Tonight partners with awesome hotels to help them sell their unsold rooms, which means you get amazing deals. The name is Hotel Tonight, but you can actually book in advance. Book next week tonight or book next month tonight. All it takes is 10 seconds, just 3 taps and a swipe. No long, endless list of a zillion hotel choices. Hotel Tonight only shows you the best deals at the best hotels. Perfect whether you're a planner or like to leave things to the very last minute. And with Hotel Tonight's HT Perks program, the more you book, the better the deals get. It's unlike any other loyalty programs where you're trapped into staying at boring chain hotels. I think about using Hotel Tonight all the time, and in fact, I have in many occasions. I live on the east side of LA, but I love the beach. I use Hotel Tonight to look at where I could possibly stay for a staycation in Los Angeles by the water, whether it's in Santa Monica or Orange County or somewhere in between. It's also great for spontaneous weekend getaways or a staycation, like I mentioned, at any hotel you've always wanted to stay at. Just skip the commute. Let someone else make the bed tomorrow and use Hotel Tonight. So start scoring amazing deals at incredible hotels and download the Hotel Tonight app now. All right, let's get back into it. And I just need to talk a lot about the hills in Laguna Beach. I feel giddy.
Let's do it.
How did you land on Lauren as the narrator? What was it about Lauren Conrad?
The interesting part about that was that we had met Lauren first. I mean, we kind of like papered the whole campus with applications. Sure. And we're like, everybody please fill out an application if you're interested. It's funny because we put up a folding table in the middle of Laguna Beach in the high school. And like the first or second day we're there, some girl walks up and she goes, I don't even know why you're doing any of this. She goes, I can already tell you exactly who you're going to pick out of this entire school to be on this show. And so of course we were like, tell us more. Like we want to hear. And she's like, no, I'm going to wait and see like if I'm right of who you pick. And we kind of.
Who was that?
I don't remember the girl who came up. Oh. I was really interested in her being on the show. I mean, we were just chasing people all over.
Sure.
We're like, do you want to be on this? Do you want to be on this? So you don't remember everybody. But I remember when we had Lauren's, she had filled out an application and I had turned around the corner. The first time I met Lauren was I had turned around the corner. And I was with Gary Arabeck, who was an EP on the show. And we walked around the corner of the high school. I think we had just come out with a meeting with one of the principals or someone at the school. And we had come out and Lauren and Lo were locked out of their car and the alarm was going off on the car and they were both screaming and they're both like dropping their keys and they're trying to get the alarm off and they're yelling at each other. And I just remember looking at Gary and being like, that's our girl. Like, she's got to be on the show. Like, these girls have to be on the show. They were so lively. It was like they were meant to be. Like, they were like right there in front of us. And so we kind of pursued them, and we said, come fill out an application, and we'll talk to your family and whatnot. And then I'll never forget, we had taken all the guys that were at the school that were kind of interested in being in the show, and we had like a meeting with them in like the school library to kind of talk about what the show is and to see if they were interested in it. Like, Talon was in that meeting, and there's a bunch of other guys in the meeting, and Steven walked in across the way, and he was going to golf class. They had golf class after school. Very
classic
OC.
Southern California.
Yeah, Southern California. No, it wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't football. It was golf class. And I remember seeing him, and as soon as he walked in, he just was that. I was like, "That's our Dylan. Like, that's our Dylan from 90210. Like, we have to get that guy." And he had the black spiky hair, and he's obviously great looking, and he had this confidence. And I was like, "We got to get him." So I remember I tapped my casting person on the shoulder, and I was like, go get that guy, fill out an application now. And so luckily they got him to fill out his, and we read his, and he said, he told us all about Lauren, and he told us all about Kristen. And he said, he goes, I am dating Kristen. He's like, but I've been like in love with Lauren before. He's like, and I don't know who I would end up with. He's like, Kristen's fun and she's great, but Lauren will always have a place in my heart. And then you look at Lauren's, application, and then we looked at Kristen's application, and we were like, and at the time, Kristen wasn't in Laguna Beach.
She was in Chicago, right?
Well, she was skiing with her family.
Oh, but she had just moved from Chicago like a year or two earlier,
She moved from Chicago,
right?
Yeah. She's from Chicago, and she moved out to live with her dad. Her mom lives in Chicago. So she was away on a ski trip. And I remember we called her, tracked her down, and we were like, can you come back? Like,
oh my God.
Immediately, like, fly back. And
what did everyone think of you? They're like, who is this guy?
I don't know. Now that I think about it, I probably was like, I don't know. It's like we're trying to get all these high school kids to be on this TV show, but we really just had such a vision, and we wanted to make like this 90210, OC kind of a show. And she just seemed like such a great character, and we had talked to her on the phone, and she seemed amazing. And then she came and met with us, and she obviously was amazing. And she had, she's just fearless, and she just has that Chicago thing about her. She's not, she's not there to take any BS. And
totally.
She didn't grow up in the bubble at all. She kind of was implanted in the bubble.
Yeah.
Whereas Steven and Lauren grew up in that bubble. And and from there, it was all just, like I said, the reality gods. It's just like lightning in a bottle.
Seriously. The black and white party. That was the first party they threw. We got Lo dancing on the bed in the hotel.
Yeah.
Who pays for that hotel room?
We got it. They actually do. They threw these parties every year.
So they did. I was going to ask, did they do it anyway?
They did it. They were doing it anyway. We were the ones that were following along with them. So the only difference is that we have to clear the locations.
Sure.
So I think what had happened at that time was we had I think they were going to do it at like the St. Regis, and like the St. Regis wasn't going to let us in with cameras, so we switched it to like the Surf and Sand, I think it was. So the location might have changed. And then it's like, if there's obviously some changes in fees, we'll cover it if it's because of our fault. You know what I mean? But you have to be really particular about that, because if they have to pay for everything, because it's their responsibility, and we're not.
Right.
But we did come up with the red cups. The red cups was an invention of our part, because they can't drink. It's like because they're underage, so we don't want to know what they're drinking, and we don't want to know what's in the red cups.
Red cups are now a staple of reality TV.
They really weren't at the time. Like, people weren't using them. I remember we had a conversation about solo cups, and we're like, let's go with red.
Does it bother you? I'm again part of this. How much like adjudicating there is of Laguna and the Hills after the fact of like what was real, what wasn't real? Like, is it annoying to you? Like, how much people want to know? Like, what did you have to like reshoot? Like, not that I'm not asking you to answer that, but does it bother you that people like ask that a lot?
No, not at all. I think the only thing it's I'll tell you this, Juliet. The funniest thing is that when we did our very first focus group for Laguna Beach, the pilot, very first episode. With Lauren standing out in the balcony looking over the water, and Steven walking in with Kristen. And it was the very first stuff we shot, and we focus grouped it. And the audiences in each room that were watching all argued when the taping was over. And we're behind a two-way mirror, and we can watch them, we can hear them. And they were all fighting with each other. Each room, you go from like the 18 to 49, and then you go to the teenage room, and then you go to the all-female room, and then the all-male room. And you can hear what everybody's saying. And they were all fighting about whether the show was real or not. And they were all like, they're actors. This isn't reality. This is scripted. And it was a heated debate between absolute strangers who had no idea who each other were. And they were screaming at each other in these rooms. And I remember I looked at the woman that was running the research department, and I said, is this a bad thing or a good thing? And she was like, no, if you're getting this kind of reaction out of people, this is amazing. Like, no research, no focus group gets this kind of reaction. So I don't mind it. I think that people are always going to question it. I don't make excuses for it. It's not a documentary. We're not with them 24 hours a day. We're not like, we don't wire up their houses like Big Brother or, you know, like a Jersey Shore type of thing where we're like just rolling 24 hours a day, just getting footage. It's very like, we need to clear locations. We're shooting in like very high-end shops and restaurants and bars, and you know those all have to be pre-cleared. You go even on Music City, you can't walk into the public library in Nashville and shoot Rachel studying for LSATs. Be like, we got a crew of 20 people here. Like, where do we park our vans? Like, everything's got to be pre-planned. So I don't ever mind that question. And I think, like, you know, as soon as the cameras start rolling and the words start coming out of their mouths, they're their words, you know. And if we have to connect some tissue because we need some connective tissue just to connect scenes, we'll ask them to say certain things just to help connect the scenes.
Sure.
Because we came up with that decision very early on that we never wanted them to talk to camera. And that was, I think, what set Laguna Beach apart from everything else at the time. They didn't have the confessionals.
Yeah, there was no on The Bachelor, ITMs.
Yeah,
in the moments.
None of that. And those things, and those are really helpful. I mean, and I love, I watch reality shows. I watch them all the time. So I don't mind those things. They help you a lot just with what's going on and what's in the person's mind. But we decided early on we didn't want those. And so it was like, it really made the job a lot harder to tell a story because you have to get all that exposition out in the scene. And we also rely on music really heavily to help tell those stories.
that was I mean, obviously the Hillary Duff Come Clean and also Natasha Bedingfield theme songs are like so huge, but like in general, music and on Music City, it's a huge part of it too. Like really punctuates like a mood and a moment, and it's a huge part of the show.
We wanted to do that, especially with Music City, but I think that was a big part also why I wanted to do the show in Nashville, because we had done so much with music on those other two shows. And I was like, how can we make music like a character on this show, like a real character? And I think that the cast writing their own songs and performing their own songs, that has to do with what they're going through in their own lives. Like Jessica singing that song, A Million Ways a Heart Can Break, at the end of episode 4, that was a song that she wrote. You know what I mean? Like, and she wrote it, she didn't like write it for that episode, but it was like something that she wrote because she was going through that in her life. And it was really interesting in that earlier in that episode, her and Jackson are sitting in a recording booth while she was in there practicing that song. At the end of it, she's sitting there singing the final product. And it was like, it's interesting because the motive behind that song came out of that first meeting in that studio. You know, so it's kind of like that song was written on that episode. And to me, I think that's so gratifying. When I look back now that we just locked the 8th episode and it airs next week, where I'm just so proud of it. I mean, I'm just so proud of it. I think we all just did.
It's really good.
I'm proud of my cast and the crew and everybody that just pulled it off. It's amazing.
I made my friend watch 5 in a row with me on one Sunday. We both had like, I call it personal admin. We both had like personal admin to do. Yeah. And I was like, let's just like watch this show. And we just tore through it. And I was like, let's keep going.
They're short. That's all we keep hearing is how short the episodes are. That people are saying they want longer episodes.
Disagree. I think the 30-minute reality show is an important part of our fabric, of our culture, and it should not go away. So many shows are way too long. Way too long.
And then you have to fill it with filler, which you don't want to ever do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like with The Bachelor, you know, you can like tune out like a good 10 minutes, and then I feel like all the Real Housewives are like a little bit like those should be like either 42 minutes on air. Like let's get them down to like 32 or like 35.
Right.
Like,
if you take away the interviews, like the talking to camera, they're really, really short. I mean, so it's like that's a good way to like fill up a show, because a lot of times what you see in the scene, they just reiterate again to camera, and that's just stretches the time.
They kind of become background shows, though, as a result of that. Like, one of the reasons you can put on The Housewives and, like, not look up for 10 minutes is because it's being told, like, they're telling you what's happening instead of having to watch it unfold. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's, like, a big difference. One thing that changed from Laguna to the Hills is there was just sort of like a more steady stream of new characters coming into the Hills all the time. Like like I mentioned, Stacy the bartender, who is forever. There's Frankie, who is friends with Brody, who I have met several times here in LA. And like I've never mentioned the Hills to him, but I've always wanted to. Yeah, if you go to Hyde, that's Frankie's spot. And then the main thing that changed with that show is like it started out as like being the story of Lauren and Heidi, and then Lauren and Heidi became enemies. So how do you produce that while staying, I assume, cordial with both of them and without having like production choose a side? Or maybe you do choose a side. I don't know.
You know, you just want to follow along. So it's, you know, the hard part is when there was a time when they literally would not speak to each other, which is, it's really difficult to make a TV show about people that just won't talk to one another. So, you know, it's a lot of begging, a lot of like, can you please just go talk to her? And then, you know, sometimes they just, like if Heidi came to Lauren's birthday party, you know, and she's going to get on a boat, and it's like, you know, we don't have any control over that. She's going to get on the boat, let her go on the boat. And if Lauren wants to accept her, then she'll accept her. And I think that, you know, we kind of just certainly didn't pick sides in it. but we just kind of told the story and went along with it. And again, looking back on Juliet, props to all of them for just giving us access, and props to all of them for putting it out on camera. I mean, we love what we do, and we love, getting in the edit and cutting it together to look very dramatic, and we add lots of music and stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can't make it without the cast. And Lauren's infamous black mascara tear, I mean, those were real tears, So good. It's real emotion. I mean, she wasn't just like doing it just to get a tear out of her eye. She was like really upset at the moment. And she took that, it was that age when you're in your early 20s, everything's monumental.
Yeah, totally.
When your best friend screws you over, you think like life's over. And I think that's what's so great about this cast is that on Music City is that they're like in their late 20s, early 30s, and they kind of know who their friends are, and they kind of already seen the BS in the world, and they're kind of now navigating their way through a city where it's really hard to make it. And I think that's it's just different than LA.
Nashville's a 10-year town, man.
10 years it takes. And do you have what it takes the last 10 years? So,
seriously.
if not, get out.
Seriously. What moment from The Hills that has lived on far beyond the show is like the most surprising to you that's like caught on? Because there's a couple of contenders. There's Lauren will always be the girl who never went to Paris.
Love that. Yeah.
I mean,
love Lisa Love.
Thank you, Lisa Love, for one of the greatest lines of all time.
She's awesome.
I constantly talk about Truth and Time Will Tell All.
Love that.
That's a really good one.
And you can't write this stuff.
So actually, people like Spencer and Justin Bobby, like, do they have to be approved to be boyfriends before they're on the show, or do they start dating them and then they get introduced to the show?
Again, it's a reality show at the end of the day, so they're just their boyfriends. Justin Bobby was dating Audrina for a little while before we got him to agree to go on camera, and we just kind of had to ignore him for a little while until he turned around. And as soon as he walked into that room for the first time at Lauren and Lo came up with the nickname Justin Bobby. I mean, that was great. She's like, "What's your name?" He's like, Justin Bobby. And she's like, well, which is it? Like, what do people call you? And she's like, well, we're going to call you Justin Bobby. And like that night we had a new nickname for a new character that's people still talk about to this day. So
I actually forgot his name wasn't Justin Bobby. It's just Justin, right?
It's Justin. Justin Bobby Briscia, I think. And they were like, okay, we're going to call you Justin Bobby. And it was just like Lo breaking balls. And it was just, Lo always is so great at breaking balls. So she was just, yes, that's kind of how that came apart. There's, I can never just pinpoint one moment on that show that is like an iconic moment for me. I think that the Paris episode was a huge moment for all of us because I think when Lauren decided not to go is a moment that we all were kind of like, shit, like this is really happening, and now we have to pivot and turn our sails, and we're all going in a different direction because we all thought we were going to go to Paris and shoot this whole gigantic ball and everything.
What a bummer for you to not go to Paris.
Well, it wasn't so much that. It's just that you kind of, as a producer and as a showrunner, storytellers, whatever, you have your head set that you're going to be telling the story, and you think that it's going to go one way, and they turn on a dime. So when she made the decision of not going, although it just made for a great story, because if she'd went, it would have been fun and we would have followed her and that would have been great. But when she chose to hang out with Jason at that beach house, we were like, all right, now what's the best way to tell this? And I think that's where we come in, and we kind of did the bait and switch where she was going to the airport and then she ended up driving out to the beach house, and then Whitney showed up at the airport instead. And
incredible.
I love that little sequence, and I think that's how we really used music and what we do in the edit to help kind of elevate the show to a different level.
Sure. I would have a hard time choosing. I love Malibu and I love the beach. So
depends. You got the boyfriend, young love, sitting on the beach in Malibu.
It's tough. Was there anyone ever like, Lauren, we don't know about Jason. He might not be a great guy?
No, because we knew Jason from Laguna Beach. I mean, obviously they had gone, from Jessica. You think she would have learned enough, right?
Seriously.
By that whole thing?
Bad boyfriend.
Just don't do that, right? We don't know. I mean, you just never know. They're going to go. Lauren was I think at the time she was very into him, and they were young and they were dating, and we have no control over it. Yeah. I'm sure she was in love, like very much so at the time. And we're fortunate enough to follow along and be like, well, let's tag along and see where it all goes. And it ended up like kind of imploding. But again, it was like part of the story. And I think that was, it was fun, to be honest with you, Juliet. Like and I had the idea to do The Hills and the spinoff, and a lot of people at MTV said, like, when you want to follow Kristen or when you want to follow Steven, and are you sure you want to follow Lauren up to the Hills? Because they didn't know that she was going to be the most like outspoken, and she certainly wasn't the most brazen character on Laguna Beach, but she was the one that I think you connected with the most. And I said, you know what, you're going to fall down and you're going to get up 100 times in LA, and everybody does when they first set out in life to like kind of set out in their first path. And I was like, we just kind of want to be there when it happens.
Sure.
I was like, so just let us come along. And I did that sell to the parents before I did it to her. And because I met with them first. And I said, look, I really would like your daughter to do this. I think she was over 18 at the time, but
she was 20.
Just out of respect, I did it with Jim and Kathy because we've been working together for so many years. And I just did it out of respect. I sat with them and told them the story. And then I said, what do you think? And they were like, well, if Lauren's okay with it, we're okay with it. And then Lauren came in the door like 20 minutes later or 10 minutes later, and we pitched it to her. And she was like, I think she was really, really excited.
Cool.
She's like, yeah, let's go do it.
Cool. And then her sister, forgot, was on the show as well. Brianna.
On Laguna.
Yeah. That was what, season 3? I believe it was 3.
I wasn't on season 3, but I think that I was like kind of already jettisoned off to the Hills world, and we were trying to keep Laguna Beach going with the new cast. So I think I helped, but I wasn't a part of the season 3 one or the
4 Newport Beach.
Newport Harbor, whatever.
Newport Harbor. I actually liked that one. Back to the Hills for a moment.
Yeah.
As the cast got more famous, how did it make your job more difficult, and how did you decide to not like include their celebrity in the show?
Yeah, that was a really conscious decision, I think, on all of our parts. And we all had to sit around and have many meetings about this because what was happening was that they were on the cover of Us Weekly.
Yeah.
And they were telling the stories before we could tell them. And
that's like what happens with the Kardashians now.
Yeah, and it is. And I think what happened, and the Kardashians are obviously still living it. But I think for us, what we realized is that wasn't really a bad thing. It was kind of like a tool. Like it was kind of it's a tease for, this is a little commercial on the cover of a magazine every week of what's coming up in the episode. So although you could see that Lauren or that Heidi had plastic surgery on the cover of Us Weekly, you're going to have to tune into the series to see like how it played out and to like see how her mother reacted and like see how the girls reacted. So a lot of times that we thought in the beginning that we were getting trumped by these magazines and these websites. Like Perez Hilton was a huge part of our lives back then.
What a time.
What a time. And that it turned out to just be like an ancillary part of the show. It was like it helped us.
Heidi's plastic surgery is one of the more is like one of the only disturbing things to me about the Hills. Like I just wish she hadn't done it. I was just watching the first episode. She was such a pretty girl, and it was just so unnecessary. Like it's such a bummer. I don't know. It just like makes me sad to look at her now.
You know, we don't have anything. Like I said, we don't have any control over it. She did that over a break. We were on Christmas break, I think, so we were down, and then we had heard that she had done it, and then we kind of just scrambled to get the mom's reaction, because to us we were like, well, that's the next thing that we'd want to see is like, what does her family think? What do her friends think?
It was just a huge bummer. Did Lauren pitch Heidi for the show, or because they did meet in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, they met at school in San Francisco. When I met with Lauren about the show, she was down with it. She said, let's go with Heidi, because she was planning on moving to Los Angeles with Heidi anyway. And then I went and had like pizza, I think at like Gina's Pizza with the two of them.
Nice.
And talked to Heidi about it. And she was down. She's like, yeah, let's go.
Of course.
She was like, yeah, let's go tear it up. And
going back and watching the first one, it's amazing how horrible she was from the beginning. Don't let your friends crash your work event, and also make them look at the curriculum before they go to like an admissions interview.
Right.
What an idiot.
That was pretty funny.
Heidi is just unbelievable. And like, just to think about the things that she did, like telling Spencer she was pregnant when she wasn't. That's insane. She was really nuts. She was born for reality TV. She is the lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, no, of course. And Spencer, too, as well. They were great.
Perfect match for each other.
I mean, they were great for the show, and they were great to bring drama. It wasn't so great for Lauren, unfortunately, but it was, it is what it is. And I think that's part of the story. I mean, obviously, in a more macro sense, is that you don't know who's good and bad when you kind of set out to make your friends in life, and like who you're kind of deciding on who you're letting into your world. And I think that's what the show is about, is like kind of filtering out the good from the bad, and like kind of figuring out who belongs in your life, And like, the show was on the air for 8 seasons, really, because we had 2 season Bs.
Yes.
So really, it was like technically 8. But we had, when the Brody came in and Justin Bobby came in and all these new characters, and Stephanie came in, Spencer's sister later, and Holly, like Heidi's sister, came in. It's like those characters come in after time, and if, Music City, there's already new characters in all these people's lives. So we're just hoping we come back and get to tell a second season story, and you'll get to meet even more people, because that world's even already expanded.
Totally. The nexus of Brody and David Foster being on The Hills, and then both going on to be on other reality shows, and like part of like these mega famous families, I feel like is overlooked. Like it's kind of wild, because when Princess of Malibu was happening, Brody's stepfather was David Foster.
Right.
And that was right before they both, Brody and Spencer, ended up on the hills, basically.
Right. Yep.
And now they're just like part of this entire culture. It's so wild.
Strange.
The other one that's crazy is Emily Weiss. Have you ever been in touch with her since she was on the hills?
I haven't. I loved Emily. She was such a trooper for playing along and just coming and being on the show. I mean, she was really what you saw on the show is who she was. And I know she's gone to great success, and I'm so happy for her. But I have not. No. Was
she introduced like because she was a good character, or because she was going to like intersect with Lauren and Whitney anyway?
We go by Teen Vogue at the time, so
Sure.
she was just brought in by Teen Vogue to like help Lauren, and I think she was great. She was a great like teacher in that sense. I mean, I think she was trying to teach Lauren some things about flowers, how to set a table, and some important things. But she was a trooper.
Who do you think has a higher net worth, Lauren Conrad or Emily Weiss? It's tough.
I couldn't say. I'm not as up on Emily Weiss as I am.
Oh my God.
I keep up with Lauren pretty regularly. But
Glossier is like the shit to women like 20 to 40. It's like really popular.
Yeah.
It's like both real life famous and internet famous, which is also Lauren, both real life famous and internet famous.
Yeah, I couldn't tell that one. I couldn't call that race if I had to.
It's pretty crazy. Like they're both like just so mega successful in like parallel ways. Are you surprised at all by Lauren's success?
No. I mean, I'm happy for it. I'm elated that her fan base is still there, and that she's obviously accumulating new fans every day. So I think that she's just an extremely smart individual. She played it really well. I mean, she really did. And I think that we all decided. I decided it was time to end the hills when we did end it, and I think that was in and of itself. I think that kind of in a sense helped with the legacy of the show. I think that had we gone on for 20 seasons, it would have been something completely different. And I think that it was nice stopping it then. And I thank Kristen for getting us over the last 2 seasons. We did it without Lauren, so we did get 2 more out of it without her, where Kristen came in and took over. So I'm proud of all of them that they kept their fan base, and that I think a big part of it too is that we didn't have the social media back then that they have now. So they're able to use Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat for a while there.
It totally
to keep all
is
that stuff
different.
going.
Yeah. It really is. It's such a different world when you go back and like you look at those shows, you look back. Basically, anything happened before the year 2008. You're just like, okay, well, this just would be so different now because
we had Blackberries back then.
Right.
And we did the show with BlackBerry Instant Messenger, like BBM.
BBM, yeah.
BBM was our life.
My pin space.
That was it. We talked to the girls all day on BBM. That was it. Like there was no iPhones.
BBM was huge in my life. Like absolutely.
The best part about BBM was that you could tell if the person read the thing that you said, because it would say
best and worst.
Well, it was great because the Instant Messenger on iPhone doesn't have that.
I know, unless you turn on read receipts, which is every person's relationship to them is different. So
yeah, that's true.
you can leave them on if you want to. Would you ever try to reboot The Hills? Because I think you could make the case like it could go, even though you didn't want to. You could do another like LA show like that. I mean, it's still there's such an interesting. I mean, it's also so different now. Like there's like YouTube stars and Instagram models, and like it's just a different like the people that Lauren and Heidi were interacting, and really Audrina. I mean, the fact that Lady Gaga was on The Hills is like also one of my favorite things in the world.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
We didn't even know who she was. We were like, what are we filming?
And she was like
what
difficult and bossy.
She really wasn't. She was just there. We didn't really know what we were doing. I mean, Kelly Catrone introduced us to her. She did many people. And
I reference Kelly all the time. If you're going to cry, go outside.
Yeah, there's nobody like Kelly Catrone. I love her. But she introduced us to Lady Gaga. And at the time, we were just like, who is this girl? And even the girls were like, are we filming all night with her? Because she was performing like a couple of songs of the thing. And I was like, we were all kind of like, I don't know. We don't know because we just shoot some stuff. We don't know what it's going to end up being. But the fact that the dress broke was great, and they fixed her dress was kind of perfect.
Because if you have like an Audrina character now, like she probably wouldn't work in the record industry. She'd probably work at like a YouTube factory or like some kind of like online video network, like Maker or something like that. Like there's a whole different economy like in LA now of young people trying to make it and whatnot. I feel like Frankie still intersects with a lot of them, to be honest, based on what I know from his time at Hyde. So
yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's all different ways to go about it. I mean, I think that if you're going to redo it, I think it would have been nice to do it before they all had children.
Sure.
I think it would have just been nice to capture them like maybe right before, like while they were pregnant, or like maybe even before they just got married. It would have been nice to see like who they all ended up with when it happened
Sure.
instead of like catching up with them now. Like some of them are married for 5 or 6 years and have
Lauren's got a kid.
multiple children. Yeah, and Kristen's
got like 70.
3 kids or something. Yeah, and they're all knock on wood. They all seem really happy. I know Whitney just had a little baby boy who's so cute. And so they're all. I mean, it'd be fun to catch up with them, but they're moms now. You know? So it's a whole different world. So I don't know what kind of show it would be. It would just be a completely different show. And I don't think I'd ever want to go like the Saved by the Bell model and just like recast a new.
Sure, you wouldn't.
The 2018 class of The Hills. Sure. I mean, look, in today's world, like never say never. Look at Roseanne and look at like, the shows that are coming back.
Will and Grace.
Will and Grace. I mean, who would have known? I think now they're on their 3rd season back. Like they got their 3rd season pickup. Roseanne was already been picked up for a 2nd season after the 1st episode. Mm-hmm. But that's because Roseanne came back. And I honestly don't think Lauren has any interest in coming back.
She doesn't seem like it.
No, we've talked about it a few times, like before they were married. Certainly the wedding. I mean, there's definitely things I tried to get.
Sure.
And she just didn't have any interest. So
she seems pretty private now. Like, she seems like there's a line of demarcation of like, this is for the public and this is for me.
Yeah, which is smart.
I respect it 100%.
100%.
Other than your own shows, what is like your favorite? Do you have a single episode of reality TV like you particularly love, or just a particular show that you really love?
There's a lot. I mean, I watch a lot of television, as we all do. We're like junkies.
Me too.
I'm just trying to think like what are my guilty pleasures as far as reality TV shows go. I'm a big fan of. I think Flipping Out on Bravo is just a genius show.
Love Jeff
I think
Lewis.
it's like really underappreciated. I think that they created like a sitcom, and I think that's really like the first like true like reality sitcom. I think I laugh. I think that show. I laughed 20 times throughout that series. So I think that they do a great job on that. Obviously, the Housewives are kicking ass. I mean, it's amazing how you think every season you're just like, I can't watch another one of these seasons. There's no way. And then I think New York just premiered the other night. Yeah. And also after one episode, you're like, all right, I'm back and I'll watch the rest of these stories. So we watch them all. And, I try to keep in touch with everything. And I certainly watch a lot of scripted stuff and a lot of Netflix and,
do you have
get
a favorite?
My head out of all that stuff. I have a bunch of shows that I really like. I mean, obviously, Game of Thrones is amazing. I thought The Crown was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would have watched that for 5 more years. I know they're going to come back again with a new cast, but I love Claire Foy, and I thought that was. I watched all those, obviously, and The Affair is great.
I fucking love The Affair.
Yeah,
my God, I love it. I'm so happy it's coming back because I thought last season was not so good. I'm like, we can't end that way.
No.
Season 2, I really love.
Season 2 is genius. I mean, I think that. I loved when they introduced Allison and like Noah's story and
Helen and what's the other guy's name?
Not Noah. What's
Cole.
Cole? Yeah, when they brought in those two, I was like, damn. I just think it's such a great storytelling device where they just keep switching and tell the story from each side. And that's what I loved about that show. And I think it got a little confusing towards the end because there were so many other characters they brought in. But hopefully they go back a little bit. But
I love The Affair. It's just an incredible watch. I guess that was season 4. Where there's been 4 seasons, huh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love The Affair too. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Doesn't get enough love. It's coming back soon.
I'm super excited it's coming back. I wish that I had more time to like spend on things that are online. Like I have a development executive that works for me who's really in touch with like what's happening and what's going on like, podcasts or like, even shows that are on Netflix that might be a little more obscure. And he'll like obsess and talk about them. And I'll go home and try to watch them and catch up. But it's hard for me to just find stuff because I live in an Edda Bay.
Sure. I recommend Lovesick on Netflix if you're looking for a show. It's really good. Also 30 minutes.
All right, I will check it out.
Yeah. Adam, thank you so much for coming.
No, it was great being here. Thank you so much for having me and keep watching. Thank you for being a fan of the shows. Really,
of course.
We love that people love it. So keep watching, please.
I'm looking forward to seeing what else you work on.
Yeah, we got a couple in the works right now, so I'm excited.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks again to our sponsors, Adore Me and Hotel Tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks.